I am looking forward to delivering the Republican response to the State of the Union, so tune in.
President Biden's border policies are a disgrace. This crisis is despicable. And the truth is, it is almost entirely preventable.
And thank you to all the gentlemen behind me who continue to work diligently to actually secure our border. That's what the American people deserve. But unfortunately, Joe Biden refuses to give that to them.
Mr. President, enough is enough.
Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I appreciate you clicking on the video, and I'm hoping in the meantime you will click on the subscribe button as well to help me to grow this channel. And if you are returning, welcome back. I truly do appreciate your continued support on my channel, the comments you leave, the discussions we have, and for just continuing to be a part of the things that I talk about here. I would appreciate it if you would make sure that you are subscribed as well. So it's been a few days since Biden's State of the Union address. And right now, every time I see the letters SOTU for State of the Union, I can't help but think of STFU. That is just what my brain does right now. So I'm sure, like many of you, I did not watch the whole thing. In fact, I only saw a couple of clips because we were all prepared for the fact that they were going to juice him up just enough to yell at the public for a couple of hours and then probably go home to take his nightly drink of Metamucil to be put to bed and to probably have his bedroom door locked from the inside because they are worried about him escaping in the middle of the night. But one of the main clips I did see was, of course, we can always count on Marjorie Taylor Greene to yell something out in the middle of one of these speeches, which you can form your own opinion about, but her yelling at Biden to say Laken Riley's name, and as we all know by now, she is the Georgia nursing student who was brutally murdered by a man who is in the country illegally, thanks to Joe Biden's open border policies. And when he attempted to say Laken's name in, trying to pretend that he actually cares about the life of this woman, then that it was taken so brutally and so needlessly, he actually just happened to mess the whole thing up.
Not really. Lincoln Riley.
Does anybody to this day know who Lincoln Riley is? And then I'm sure many of you saw the follow-up interview that he did the next day when he was asked about this incident. And instead of apologizing for mispronouncing her name and showing her such utter disrespect and showing her family such utter disrespect, he felt that it was necessary to apologize for calling the man who brutally murdered her illegal instead of undocumented. Because that is where the priorities of the Democrat Party lie these days. It's about the language you use, never mind whether or not people are viciously attacked and assaulted in the street. We just can't offend people by using the wrong words. But unfortunately, what got more attention than the words from the President of the United States is a response from a GOP senator out of Alabama named Katie Britt. And it's interesting because the fact that her public appearance and her public remarks got far more attention than the speech from the President of the United States tells us everything that we need to know about how much people, even in his own party, really take him seriously and really respect him as a leader. So apparently her speech was about 17 minutes long, and there may have been some really great points in it, but I think the delivery is really what turned people off about this. So in case you missed it, I am going to play just a couple of the highlights from it to demonstrate what it is that people are so worked up about. And, this might be some people's cup of tea, but I think for the most part, people are really tired of a lack of sincerity, and it really did not go well for Senator Britt, unfortunately.
World country. This is the United States of America, and it is past time, in my opinion, that we start acting like it. President Biden's border policies are a disgrace. This crisis is despicable. And the truth is, it is almost entirely preventable. Mr. President, enough is enough. Innocent Americans are dying, and you only have yourself to blame. Fulfill your oath of office. Reverse your policies. End this crisis and stop the suffering.
Again, that was just a small chunk of it. And there probably were some very substantive messages in there, but people were so turned off by the theatrics that it was really hard to pick those important messages out or to really appeal to anybody at such an important time. And I think a lot of people are wondering why the GOP would take this approach, because this whole, the theatrics and the drama are generally not the way that we approach things. We're much more logical and reasonable, and we just get straight to the point. And this is just not something that comes naturally to us. So perhaps that's why it failed so miserably. But the only reason that I can possibly think of that they would do this is to attempt to appeal to liberal women. It's just a theory, but it seems to me that the only reason the GOP would send Senator Britt out there and coach her to be so theatrical with this delivery is because they're looking at, people like Kamala Harris and Karine Jean-Pierre and the way that liberal women tend to speak to their base, these liberal leaders. And they pretty much just said, have a look at Kamala Harris. She doesn't really say anything that matters, but she does get those dramatic effects and pauses out into her speeches. So just go out there and do that, and we'll be able to expand our base to the women that apparently find us so off-putting most of the time. But again, it just failed miserably, which is really unfortunate because she seems like a very nice woman. She seems very capable. She seems very down to earth. But it just, this type of insincerity and dramatics just does not appeal to conservative women. She was unfortunately roasted mercilessly by numerous women on the right. Just because of the way that my brain works, this was my internal response to her speech as well.
In these State of the Union responses, they put up rising star in the Republican Party, Katie Britt, who is a senator from the state of Alabama and a Republican, as I said. And I don't know what the F I saw. I agree with the people saying she looked like she was auditioning for a show on Lifetime. The drama, the fake affectation, the over-the-top portrayal of emotions I did not believe she was feeling at all. She embarrassed herself. She embarrassed the Republicans, and she embarrassed women. It was a disgrace. I was horrified by her performance, and I really think that it's going to take her years to rebound from that performance. Am I being too hard on her, Sarah?
No, I completely agree with you. And as you rightfully pointed out, it is the most Republican thing to do ever, to be handed this on a silver platter. You have a guy who's at a low bar is just don't die. He hits that, right? Okay, so good for him.
Right,
but it was just such a terrible, terrible night. And there were so many lies that were spewed. And you have this opportunity on a silver platter. And what do you do with it? You parade Katie Britt out there to audition for a Lifetime movie. I mean, it was just so painfully embarrassing.
So I don't know if this was their attempt to try to appeal to liberal women, but next time, if they want to do that, just a little tip to the GOP, next time, just bring in a drag queen or at least a man in a dress, because that would have been the ticket. That would have been a total game changer, because as we know, there are no rights that leftist women are fighting harder for right now than men who cosplay as women. So just a little bit of advice. Next time, just get a man in a dress, call him a woman, and Democrat women will be all over that speech about women's rights and women's safety. But back to Katie Britt. She was not only just completely scorched by conservative women, but of course the backlash included a lot of liberal women as they went off on her and pretended that the crap that Senator Britt pulled, that it's not the same thing that they fall for literally every minute of every day. And one of these response videos from a liberal Democrat woman came to me in the form, I believe originally of a notification from Reddit. This woman's response is about 5 minutes long, and we're not going to listen to the whole thing because it really is just insufferable. But the lack of self-awareness and the hypocrisy in this video is just absolutely mind-boggling. So we'll listen to a couple minutes of it. I'll probably interrupt here and there, but just leave your thoughts on the comments about just some of the errors in her method or her way of thinking through this whole thing.
Hi, I'm an Alabama mom at my kitchen table, and this video is for Katie Britt. I don't know what happened last night. I don't have to tell you that you came off as really disingenuous at best, and at worst kind of psychotic. I don't know what happened there, if you were like overcoached. definitely ill-advised. Or maybe you sounded so fake because you don't believe what you were saying. I think we know some of the same people, and I suspect that it's the latter.
So I just have to pause it right there when she's talking about disingenuous and psychotic speeches. I'm sorry, ma'am, but have you ever watched a speech by Kamala Harris?
Quite behind in terms of maximizing our collective understanding about how we will engage on the technology of today and what we can quickly and easily predict will be the technology over the next decades. So to maintain our position as the United States of America on this issue, it is critical that we work together to understand where we are, to recognize and have the courage to speak truth about what is obsolete, and then to partner to ensure that we are speaking the same language with the same motivation, inspired by the opportunity of it all, but then doing the work of updating how we have been talking and thinking about our exploration.
She goes on and on about electric school buses and Venn diagrams, and she laughs hysterically at the most awkward moments, and the room either stays completely silent because they have absolutely no idea what she's laughing about, or she does get a couple of pity laughs to attempt to make those moments less cringy than they already are. And any one of her speeches provides meme material for at least a solid month.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
I love Venn diagrams. I love Venn diagrams. So here's the thing. Who doesn't love a yellow school bus? Right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? Just, there's something about and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus, right?
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
What can be unburdened by what has been? What can be unburdened by what has been? What can be unburdened by what has been? What can be unburdened by what has been?
So yeah, I mean, I agree. Senator Britt's speech was just really difficult to stomach, but the fact that you're even trying to pretend that the women in the Democrat Party aren't the ultimate heroes of psychopathy and cringy moments makes your response really cringy in and of itself, and we are only 30 seconds into it.
I was up until 2 o'clock in the morning scrolling on Twitter. I haven't seen backlash like this in a really long time, and honestly, it made me so angry because the men in your party have been doing and saying still around, but then you give a speech that I know you didn't write, that you probably rehearsed 100 times in front of 100 different people, and 100 different people signed off on it. It was weird, and now your career, it's not good. It might be over. I actually think this could be the beginning of something really great, but you would have to choose women over your party. You'd have to be really brave and choose women over your party, the party that set you up at a kitchen table, no less, and knocked you down. Alabama has had a really hard couple of weeks, and we are in desperate need of leadership. And I think everyone is just so desperate for a government that isn't so dysfunctional. We want people who work for us. We're tired of the political theater. It's so obnoxious. We're tired of the fear mongering and lack of action, lack of respect, and just tired of all of the distractions, because that's what so much of this is. Last night you told a story, probably in too much detail, about a woman who was trafficked and raped, and the point was the border. It was about stoking fear about the border. But the thing is, you and I both know that trafficking happens everywhere, in our own backyards, all of the time. Every day I see another headline where a pastor or a youth pastor has been arrested for SA or possession of SA, child SA materials. Our churches are crawling with predators. No one ever talks about that, but the church is crawling with predators because, of course, predators are going to find places where there is a lot of trust and no accountability, very few, if any, consequences when they're caught. Women and children are not safe in this country, but it's not because of Joe Biden's border policies. It's because white men in power protect each other. They can literally get away with murder. And if you don't believe me, ask Angie Solomon in Tennessee. You're right. Families are hurting. They're struggling. They're struggling to put food on the table. But it's not Joe Biden's fault.
And I think that's all we have time for of that. But first of all, the left constantly brings up this argument about predators in churches because it's usually in response to the insane lie that conservatives are banning books and the lie that we're trying to keep drag queens from existing or some nonsense like that. But they bring up this stuff because they think that they are exposing the right for not caring about people who prey on children. But what they're really doing is exposing their own inability and cowardice when it comes to protecting kids, because they're too afraid of the LGBTQ activist mob to speak up against letting kids read porn in schools or having kids attend sexually explicit shows and events with drag queens. So their argument is not that they care about predators anywhere, even in churches, but that since there are predators in other areas of life besides schools and libraries and preschools and all of these other places where we're just seeming to see it explode, that there's really no point in protecting kids at all. And to a couple of her other points when she says that there are a lot of things, absurd things that men in the GOP party says, it really is astronomically out of touch, when I could literally sit here and spend hours pointing out the footage that we could just go over probably just in the last week of Joe Biden's gaffes, including for some reason talking about the Cookie Monster, but I'll just spare you all because you are all aware of all of those things that men on the left say constantly. And I will just say that at least in the GOP, our men don't wear dresses. We can also agree that we are tired of the government's lack of action and all of the distractions from the main issues. But then we would also have to talk about their lack of action on the border, the lack of action on curbing the fentanyl crisis that is robbing millions of mothers of their children, the lack of security in our city streets that is making it so women cannot walk to work or just go for a run or walk to their cars without the risk of being attacked or assaulted because of the social justice policies put in place by the Democrat Party. And then she tries to lecture us about how all of these white men are not being held accountable for the harm that they are causing to vulnerable women and children, while at the same time abdicating all responsibility from Joe Biden, who is a white male in charge of the entire country, and saying that there is no reason to hold him accountable when it comes to the border. She just tried to list all of these ministries that are supposedly harboring predators because she cares so much about what is happening to women and children, yet she's protecting the guy who has allowed our southern border to be completely taken over by drug cartels and human traffickers, where millions of women and children are being sold across the border to traffickers in our country and living a life of sex slavery that they are probably never going to be able to escape from. And Biden not only refuses to stop it, but he is just continuing to allow it to happen and penalizing people who try to stop it. And we are talking about the fact that this impacts millions of victims from all over the world. And again, it's completely insane for these women to pretend that this is not the kind of crap that they fall for all the time. This was a video posted by somebody that was flying on a flight with Delta Airlines, and it says, "My genuine reaction to seeing a flight deck with 3 amazing and powerful female pilots for the first time." Thankfully, we do have more sane women who can accurately recap the State of the Union address for us.
Thank God my daughters will be able to have abortions under Joe Biden. The economy is booming, even though you feel like it's not, and your pocketbook doesn't feel like it is. The economy is booming, and thank God my daughters can have abortions. If you voted for Trump, you were there January 6th. Even though you weren't, you still were, and you're an insurrectionist. And my daughters can have abortions under Joe Biden. Illegal immigrants? I mean, they don't murder that many people. It's not that big of a deal. And my daughters will be able to have abortions. And if you want to go to college, I'll pay for it. You'll be debt-free, just like Ukraine. And your daughters can have abortions.
This woman should have delivered the GOP response to Biden's speech, but it does just go to show how much they rely on the emotions tied to this one issue to get women to completely ignore every other way that women are completely unsafe and not thriving in this country. And it is a little weird to me to see them insist that Katie Britt's speech was the one that was harmful to women, while simultaneously protecting a man who just spent 2 hours yelling at us while creating an increasingly hostile environment for women to live in, and then believing him when he says that he promises to do better. But hey, that's progressivism these days. Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments below. Please be sure that you hit that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed because I am trying to grow this channel. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Or maybe I should say, keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.